The committee reports progress. Pursuant to order, I now call upon Senator statements. Senator Barnardi.
Well, thank you, Madam Acting Deputy President. I rise today to raise a matter involving a man claiming to be an international business leader, but has demonstrated through his words and actions to be a person who clearly has a limited, if any, association with the truth. I'm talking about a gentleman by the name of Mr Mohammed el-mouelhy, who is a head of the Halal Certification Authority. Now, I was first drawn to Mr Mouelhy's attentions by his Facebook page, in which he made the following comment about me. Mr Cori Barnardi is a well-known bigot and Muslim hater. A couple of years ago, when halal certification became an issue for the bigots, Barnardi sent me an unsolicited, offensive and racist email. I didn't dignify him with a response then, and I'm not about to dignify him now. Well, having never heard of this man before, and establishing that I'd never had any previous contact with him, I was perplexed as to his claim. Upon further review of his distasteful, his bigoted and his racist social media rantings, I actually thought that this was a grubby parody account. Imagine my shock when I discovered that Mr el-mouelhy was actually a real person claiming to be a respected businessman. So I contacted him through his business email, asking for evidence of his defamatory claim that I'd sent him an unsolicited, offensive and racist email. He responded by not providing any evidence at all and refusing to engage in any further conversation. Accordingly, I am completely at peace in referring to Mr el-mouelhy's claims about me as completely false, and that I can only consider him to be a liar. And this prompted me to conduct a further review of Mr el-mouelhy's public statements. Clearly, he's no stranger to the limelight. With an increasing interest in halal certification, and as the head of the Halal Certification Authority, he's taken every opportunity to have his views heard. He pops up in TV interviews, on radio and in print. He's constantly offering opinions that halal certification has made him a multi-millionaire, and in fact you could probably think that he's the quasi-face of this certification in Australia. And yet when he was given his opportunity to appear before a Senate committee about this precise topic, he refused to appear. Now, I'm guessing that the requirement to tell the truth in giving evidence before a Senate committee was enough to scare him off. But that doesn't stop him talking about the Senate inquiry. On Facebook, he called the inquiry an exercise in bigotry and a sham. He labelled as bigots all those who called for the inquiry and all the senators who voted for it. He insulted almost every submission to the inquiry. And in fact, he claimed quite incorrectly that the inquiry wants to destroy the halal certification industry. Now, amid proclamations that the government had shut down the inquiry, again, another lie, Madam Acting Deputy President, he boasted further about the money he makes and he mentioned alleged corruption within the halal certification industry in Indonesia. Now, I've got a large part of me that wonders whether we should take anything he says seriously, because in addition to defaming me on the internet, Mr el-mouelhy is happy to abuse many others. He insults the whole of New South Wales as a bigot's dreamland. In Queensland, he describes it as the bigot's hinterland, and the ACT is clearly foil hat territory, according to Mr el-mouelhy. Now, I'm not going to list them all now, but he said the same about virtually every state and territory in Australia. On Facebook, he doles out opinions and insults in equal measure. And just a few of these sorts of abuses I'll characterise today. Next to photos of pork rectums for sale, he writes, "Favourite food of bigots. They are what they eat." He accuses the Reverend Fred Nile of watching pornography on his computer and reading free porn mags. In a comment to someone who posted on his page, he wrote, "You're a jealous bogan. Die in your rage, bigot." And another comment about someone on his page, he said, "This guy must have been to a Catholic school. He's besotted with pedophilia." And when asked about animal suffering, he said, "I don't mind seeing you suffer." He applies labels to those who don't agree with him as bogans, bigots, religiously intolerant, rednecks and hicks. And his comments about a photo of short-cut bacon, where the word cut has been misspelled through the addition of an additional consonant, is quite simply repulsive, and it would be unparliamentary for me to repeat it here. Such comments do not reflect well on any Australian businessman, especially someone who claims to be as successful and prominent as Mr el-mouelhy. And I've lost count the number of times he labels me an Islamophobe, a bigot or a Muslim hater. Frankly, I put no stock in his insults against me. It's not the first time someone's called me names, and coming from someone like him, I wear it as a badge of honour. But the telling things about these online rantings and arrogant insults is what it tells us about the character of Mr Mohammed el-mouelhy. He's willing to spend a significant amount of time abusing people on social media and peddling lies in the public domain. And by his own admission, he's been involved in corrupt dealings, bribery to be specific, to attempt to gain access to the Indonesian halal food market. On ABC's Four Corners, he was asked whether the $28,000 he spent on a visit to Australia by Indonesian halal officials was, in his mind, a bribe, and this is what he said. In my mind, you know, as an after fact, yes, it is a bribe. So why would anyone want to do business with a corrupt businessman? But according to Mr el-mouelhy himself, business is booming. He arrogantly talks about how much money he makes from the halal certification industry, and on Today Tonight he said it had made him a millionaire. On Four Corners he said everything he touches turns to gold. And his website, his business website, claims that it's got an 80% market share of halal goods in Australia, something which I've seen no evidence of, but that's what he claims. Yet beneath these dodgy boasts, there are many, many questions to be answered. He portrays himself and his business as an Islamic body or authority. The name alone, Halal Certification Authority, implies that it's some sort of peak community representative organisation. It even has a .org domain name instead of the usual .com. But is it really an Islamic body or authority? Is it really a not-for-profit organisation as suggested by the domain name? As far as I can tell, it's neither. It's simply a private business formed to make money for Mr el-mouelhy through any means possible. Descriptions of his company on various websites claim the Halal Certification Authority, and I quote, is the most authoritative national Islamic body on the application of Islamic dietary laws, and that it is, and I quote again, an Islamic body appointed by AQUIS, or the Australian Quarantine and Inspection Service, according to federal legislation. Well, Mr el-mouelhy is not an imam or Islamic religious leader, so I don't know what basis he makes the claims of being a credible authority. And AQUIS doesn't appoint Islamic certifiers. The certifiers apply to AQUIS to gain approval to certify certain products for export. Now further, Mr el-mouelhy boasts on Facebook that, and I quote, Sharia rules. And he's associated with another organisation that includes a special religious or Sharia subcommittee. But despite these statements and associations, el-mouelhy also actually denies the existence of Sharia or Islamic law. On 11 February 2015, during an interview on SBS, el-mouelhy stated in relation to a court case, the defendants have said I'm actually working to install Sharia law, whatever that is, in Australia. On the 18th of March 2015, during an interview on ABC's The Drum program, el-mouelhy claimed, and I quote, there is no such thing in Islam called Sharia law, by the way. They're just more contradictions from a man unwilling to be confined by the truth. Alarmingly, el-mouelhy also boasts about contributing to the global Islamic charity Human Appeal International, or HIA, an organisation that's been banned in Israel since 2008 because it channels funds to Hamas and has links to Hezbollah. Now, Mr el-mouelhy claims he knows of no links from HIA to Hamas, but a quick internet search reveals the HIA logo in use at Hamas ceremonies. And Hamas, I remind the Senate, has been listed by the United Nations as a terror group since 2001. And in 1996, the CIA report said HIA was used as a conduit to fund terrorism. It also sponsored 2 visits to Australia by a bloke named Tarek al-Sumaidan, a man banned from the US and Belgium for his violent anti-Semitism. And this is the charity that Mr el-mouelhy chooses to support. In short, based on his words and his actions, I cannot consider Mr el-mouelhy to be a trustworthy person. And in fact, I think he does a great disservice to the Muslim community and the halal certification industry. During evidence to the Committee on Halal Certification, one witness described the shonks and conmen operating within the industry and endorsed calls for reform. In my opinion, Mr el-mouelhy is the embodiment of such a description. I know he's made false statements about me, and I know he has made admissions to being involved in corrupt practices. On that evidence alone, el-mouelhy must be considered one of the halal industry shonks and con men that no reputable organisation should have anything to do with.
Thank you, Senator Barnardi.